Assalamu alaikum. So hi everyone, welcome to the class. So this will be our last class before the midterm exam. As I promised you last time, so this class will be divided into two parts. So the first one would be dedicated to the second and the fourth chapter. So we should finish our work regarding how to value a firm using different techniques. So we have already studied the technique based on the accounting financial statements, then the one based on the mix between the market price of the share and the balance the balance sheet. And now we are moving to the final technique, which is based on the free cash flow, right? Last time we have learned how to build a free cash flow statement based on the cash flow consolidated statement of cash flow disclosed by the accounting service. So we have the accounting department in the firm, which will disclose mainly three important disclosures. The first one is the balance sheet, قائمة المركز المالي. Second one is the income statement, قائمة الدخل. And third one is the consolidated statement of cash flow, CSCF, which is قائمة التدفق النقدي. We have seen that for each one of these three statements, we have brought modifications. So to adapt these statements to the requirements of finance, because finance is mainly about cash flow, not about virtual or just book book records. For example, we have seen that amortizations is not considered as a real expense in finance. We have to delete it when we prepare the statement of cash flow. We have also seen that we have to just take into consideration the operating operating features of the activities of the firms and the investment related to operations, and same time we have to delete all financial items from the cash flows. That's what we have done last time, right, for the Abbassi Corporation. Now we move to the next part. Once we have prepared this statement of cash flow, now how to use it in order to find the fair value of the firm, and consequently how to use it to find the right value or the fair value of the stock. Once we have found this fair value of stock, we can undertake the right investment decision: buy it, hold it, or sell it. هذا هدفنا. يعني أول خطوة نطلع statement of cash flow حسب معطيات أو حسب متطلبات التمويل، بعدين نستعمل الكاش فلو هذول عشان نطلع السعر العادل للشركة كلها أو القيمة العادلة للشركة كلها، بعدين نستعملها عشان نطلع القيمة العادلة للسهم، بعدين نقارن بينه وبين السهم الأوبزرد، يسمى أوبزرد ماركت برايس، السعر المشاهد في السوق. وقتها يقدر المستثمر ياخذ قراره. So what we call fundamental analysis. هذا ما يسمى التحليل قائم على الأساسيات. This is very effective analysis. هذا من أحسن التحاليل. هذا technical analysis القائمة دائما عايشة على الشارتس، وشوف تحركات السهم في السوق، يحط لك upper bound، حد أعلى، حد ولور باوند، وحد أسفل، وحد أسفل، وشوف متى أنه سعر السهم جاوز الحد الأعلى أو نزل تحت الحد الأسفل، هنا تاخذ قرارك تبيع أو تشتري. والحد الأعلى والأسفل هذول نطلعهم من الهيستوريكال برايسز، يعني من المشاهدات التاريخية للسعر السهم هذا في الماضي. هذه طريقة شخصيا ما حبذا، لأنه ما تعتمد على السوق، والسوق مو دائما صح. الطريقة اللي حبذا شخصيا هي الفندمنتال اناليسيس، القائمة على الأساسيات، القائمة على البزنس، على الاوبريشنز، على الاقتصاد الحقيقي للشركة، يعني بعيدا عن مضاربات السوق وعن الرياكشن، اوفر رياكشن واندر رياكشن حق الأسواق. لا، الفندمنتال قائمة على الأساسيات حقت أي بزنس من وقت يعني بدأ الإنسان يسوي البزنس إلى يوم الناس هذا. طيب I sent you 2 Excel files, right? So please download them. We need the first one right now, which is the ABC. Chapter 2, ABC Corporation. No sure. صح صح. للسوق. السوق يعني مو الشركة، عفوا، لأنه السوق دائما المشكلة في السوق هو يعني في فرضيات، في مثلا فرضية تقول لك مثلا efficient market معروف EMH efficient market hypothesis. Such hypothesis assume that the market is very efficient, which means no cost, no taxes, free information available for everyone in the market at the same time. You know, when you try to apply these conditions to the real life, they're not, you know, verified. So you can hardly find a really effective market. The market which gets the closest to these assumptions is the American market, US market, but still it's not 100% efficient. While when we use the financial statements, we talk about real things, right? About sales, but we don't take into consideration the reaction of the market. For the market, and it is empirically, you know, verified, you have what we call overreaction, which means overreaction means that somebody who is feeling excited beyond the limit. For example, if you look that the market is going up, so you'll be very excited and you will invest more money in the market, not because you have made a good analysis, but you have observed that other people are investing their money into stocks and the market is going up and up. So you overreact. Same thing, sometimes when you observe that the market is going down, so you will feel panicked, and you will sell your investments, not because your investments are bad investment, but because you have seen other people do the same thing, so you follow them. صح. فانت خذ اي هو كبه التاريخيه، السبب التاريخيه هنا هي مبنيه على شغل الشركه نفسه، كم باعت كم اشترت، وش ستراكشر حق الاكسبنسز حقها، يعني المصاريف، وش تركيبه المصاريف حقها مثلا، كم دخلت تدفع فوائد، كم دخل عليها ضرائب، هذه اشياء واضحه. الثاني ما تعتمد على الشركه بس، تعتمد على الشركه صح، وبنفس الوقت على الرياكشن حق الناس اللي برات الشركه، وهذول مو مضمونين، هذول تصرفهم مضمون اصلا. ال EMH efficient market hypothesis suppose that all the stakeholders، كل متداخلين في الماركت، get access to even the private information into the company، حتى المعلومات الخاصة السرية تكون متاحة للجميع. هذا مو صحيح، مو موجود. But Doctor, in that perspective, technical analysis involves the behavioral finance. Absolutely, yes. So, which is يعني fundamental analysis، يعني أبدا ما في أي. So, كلامك صح. Why technical analysis is so good when you are operating in short horizon، على المدى القصير. But when you try to look at the long run horizon, the fundamental analysis is in almost cases more efficient, because you can get the wrong decision for one day, for 1 week, for 1 month, but the end of the day you will conscious that you have made the wrong decision. يعني الخطأ يمكن يتواصل معك يوم يومين، هذا لك حق الماركت. يعني أديك أنا مثال. So if you look to the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, some stock prices have witnessed crash during the pandemic, not because they were, bad companies or because of the effect of panic, right? Now people will try to sell their investments into stock market. When there is a massive sales, the prices will go down, right? This is an overreaction from the market. Now, if you look to the fundamental analysis of these companies, they are doing well before the pandemic, which means that the crash into the prices was not due to their bad performance. It was due to the overreaction of the market, right? So in such cases, smart investors will buy these stocks when they are at their lowest level. هيشترونها في عز البانديميك. ليش؟ المفروض يبيعوها صح ولا لا؟ الناس كلها جالسه تبيع، في ناس لما ما تبيع تروح تشتريها في الوقت بالذات. ليش؟ Because fundamental analysis shows that these companies are doing well. And this crash was just due to exogenous shock. يعني صدمة خارجية ما عندها ولا علاقة بشغلهم. So these smart investors expect that once the pandemic is gone, these companies will grow up faster, even faster than before. So they will make a huge, huge profits by buying these stocks at the lowest level right now. That's why when you look to make profits, or when you try to make investments for the long run, better, focus on the fundamental analysis. When you try to speculate, then you can use, the technical analysis. Okay, so let's get back to our example. This was our example. As you can see here, we have brought some modifications. So the operating activities have been kept untouched. Now for the short-term investments, we have deleted the ones who are related to short-term investment, because short-term investments are about buying, marketable securities. So they are financial investments. See, so we have shadow the cells for short-term investments with the green, with the gray color, and we consider just the property and disposition of property, plant, and equipment. So purchase of property as minus sign, because we are purchasing, we are paying money to purchase something. Now proceeds from disposition when you are selling some of your properties. تعرفوا الاستثمار في نوعين، في اما تشتري او تبيع ممتلكاتك صح ولا؟ So proceeds from dispositions of property, plant, and equipment, it's when you are buying some of your plants. That's why they are recorded with a positive sign, because you are receiving money. You are selling and receiving money. Then you have here the net cash used in investing activities. Now all financial activities are deleted. They are not taken into account when we compute the free cash flow. كلنا نشيلوها، نخلي بس مثل ما شفتوا الاوبريشن اكتيفيتيز والانفستمنت اللي متعلقه بالاوبريشن اكتيفيتيز بعد بس. Then you have the free cash flow. We have free cash flow before interest adjustment. Once we have computed them, we add back after tax net interest, which is the interest times 1 minus tax rate. We have seen that last time. And then you have the free cash flow. Now we make the conjunction now with the chapter number 4. Now how to use these free cash flow to find the fair value of the firm and then the fair value of the stock. So we are here. Remember, we are at the end of the year 2012. Okay, so 2008, 9, 10, 11 are historical data. Now 2012 is the present date, right? Which means that the free cash flow by the end of 2012 is equal to, where it is, just let me find it, is equal to $593,276, right? So this is the free cash flow, right? Now how to use it to find, the right value of the firm. Now we make assumptions. We'll make assumptions. So we assume that this free cash flow will grow up with a constant growth rate of 8% yearly for the 5 next years. This is our first assumption. هذا أول افتراض بنسويه. Because based on our previous data. For example, we can when we observe how our cash flow is growing up during the past 5 years, for example, we see that it grows up by 8% every year. So we expect that will continue in such, a rhythm for the next 5 years. After that, we assume that we reach the maturity phase. مرحلة النضج خلاص. And the maturity phase, we have lower growth rate. صح؟ دايما عندك في مرحلة النمو ستارت اب تكون عندك مرة مرتفعة، وفي مرحلة النضج خلاص في عندك نمو بس نسبة النمو تكون أقل. So we assume that after that we have a long-term growth rate and definitely يعني غير محدد بالزمن with 5%. And we have a cost of capital or a discount rate or required rate of return of 10.7%. هذا معطيات اللي عنها. بقول لك حسب الشركة نفسها. اي معطي عندك مثلا شركة تكون تعرف في نص مرحلة النمو. بس عندنا 5 سنوات عشان نوصل مرحلة النضج. حاجين يعني تمشي ماركتينج هم يعطوك يعني تقريبا متى يوصل مرحلة النضج وكم مرحلة النمو وقت. هذه كل معطيات انت تاخذها من ديبارتمنت ثاني من داخل الشركة. حسب عادة يحدوها حق البزنس يعني الماركتينج مثلا اي كلهم هذول يحدون تقريبا كان باقي لك عشان مرحله النمو من الشركه. احيانا نجيب احيانا يكون من الشركه اذا عندك ديبارتمنت قوي يعني في الدراسات يقدر يسوي لحالك يعني. اذا لا تجيب مثلا شخص ثاني او يعني سيرفيس بروفايدر موزي خدمات من برا الشركه وبيعطيك يعني تقريبا حسب حالتك انت وحسب حاله المنافسه كم عندك نسبه نمو متوقعه والى ذلك. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4 rows are data that are given to you. So the first one, so the free cash flow are given to us, but we have computed it using the ABC spreadsheet, right? Now we know that we expect a growth rate of 8% yearly for the next 5 years. Now after that, we expect a lower growth rate, but still, yes, 5%. And we have weighted average cost of capital or discount rate, معدل خصم, of 10.7%. Now, how to use these data in order to find the right value of the firm and of the share? Let me just remind you of, the Gordon-Shapiro model. The Gordon-Shapiro model is a model that we use in order to find the right value of stock, right? But we can apply it for any, asset. As a constant growth. Yes. But this asset must observe, let's say, respect some conditions. There are 3 conditions in order to use the Gordon-Shapiro model. First condition, the growth rate must be stable, constant. Second condition, it must be constant and definitely, which means without limit in the time, right? Third condition, this growth rate, this constant growth rate must be less than the cost of capital or discount rate or the WACC. So you have to meet these 3 requirements so we can use the Gordon-Shapiro model to, for example, to value the firm, right? So let's move to the board. بنت أسير معنا بورد بنكتب على السبورة، بنفتح الكاميرا ونكتب على السبورة. وضعك من بورد بنات ولا؟
واضح الشرح.
حلو تعال. نسيت. طيب. قلنا we have to use this Gordon-Shapiro model. So we have to respect, or we have to be sure that this particular asset meets 3 conditions. First condition, the growth rate is constant. Second condition, the time horizon is unlimited. Third condition, this growth rate must be strictly lower than the discount rate. So you have to meet these three conditions, which means for the first phase, for example, because you have two growth rates, right? You have the first one going from year 1 to year 5. This phase, did not, meet the second requirement because our time horizon is limited to 5 years. So we cannot apply. So we cannot apply the Gordon-Shapiro for the first phase, which is from year 1 to year 5. But we can apply it to the second phase, which goes beyond the year 5, because we have unlimited time horizon. Have the G which is constant. It's called G2 because G1 equal to 8%, 5%. And we have also G2 lower than the cost of capital, which is equal to 10.7%, which means that the three conditions are verified for the second phase. Okay. So we have found a solution in order to solve the second phase. But what about the first phase? Which is from year 1 to year 5. We cannot solve it using the Gordon-Shapiro model. That's a problem. For the first phase, we use the Irving-Fisher model. For the Irving-Fisher model, we assume that the price of any asset is nothing but the sum of its discounted cash flows. That's it. Right? We have the following, situation. Our cash flow, free cash flow, is for year 2012. كويس. 2012, right? We have two separate phases على مرحلتين مختلفتين. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. During this first phase, we have an annual growth rate of how much? We have G1 of 8%, which means that for the year 2013, our free cash flow will grow up by 8%. Same thing for the year 2014. So on. It's our first phase, right? Then, once we have reached the year 5, what happened? The growth rate will go down from 8% to 5%. And this 5% will continue indefinitely. إلى نهاية الزمن هتوصل عن 5% هذه. So we have here. So this is the second phase. Let me just draw it with different color. Now we have plus 5%, 6, 7 plus 5%, 8 plus 5%, and will continue infinitely. This second phase meets the required Gordon-Shapiro model. This first phase meets the requirement of Irving-Fisher model. So actually, we try to use or to mix both models, Irving-Fisher and Gordon-Shapiro. Right. Now let's start with this one. Right. So we can easily compute free cash flow 1, which is free cash flow 0 plus 8%. And then free cash flow 2, which is the 1 plus 8%, the 3, which is the 2 plus 1%, 8%, and so on. So we can easily find it. We have here free cash flow 1, free cash flow 2, free cash flow Now try to imagine as if there is nothing beyond that day. احنا انتهينا هنا خلاص وقفنا هنا. سوي ديسكاونت هذا الكل. As if we have two prices or two values, V1 and V2. So the V1 is nothing but free cash flow 1 divided by 1 plus k power 1 plus free cash flow 2, 1 plus k power 2, free cash flow 3, 1 plus k power 3, free cash flow 4, 1 plus k power 4, and free cash flow 5, 1 plus k power 5. لا احنا مطلع لا عن 2012 صح ولا؟ But you know that the subsequent cash flows will grow up by 8% yearly. نقدر نطلع بسهوله هذا وهذا يساوي كم؟ وهذا زائد 8%. ما طلعت على الكي 10.7%. واضح؟ طيب. This is the first value. Now try to imagine that the timeline will start at this date. انسى هذا كله نسوي حاجه. نبدا مرحله جديده الحين مرحله جديده. So this is our starting date. صارت تزيرو هنا صار. لأنه صار تزيرو هنا. كانت مرحلة جديدة. For the second phase, we can apply the Gordon-Shapiro model. And for the Gordon-Shapiro model, the formula is very simple, very intuitive. And it is the following. So if you want to find, for example, V0, which is the price right now of any asset that meets the requirements of Gordon-Shapiro, just equal to each cash flow for the next year divided by k minus the growth rate. That's it. You don't need to make all these maths. But just to consider the cash flow for the next year. احنا موجودين هنا صح ولا لا؟ وين next year؟ هي هذه. Divide by k minus g.
بس احنا كيف بنحدد اللي بعده؟ عن طريق ضربه ب 1 بلس الجروث.
صح.
الجروث نستخدم الانفينيتي صح؟
خلاص دخلنا مرحله ثانيه تصير 5%.
يعني حتى فوق لما اضرب 1 بلس الجروث يكون الكونستنت.
صح. يعني صارت هنا الديو الكاش فلو 1 يعني اللي يجي بعد تي 0. الكاش فلو فري كاش فلو 6 صح ولا لا؟ هذا. فري كاش فلو 6 divided by k minus وجي حنا عندنا جي 2 اللي هي 5% جي 2. Since we know free cash flow 5, so free cash flow 6 is simply equal to free cash flow 5 divided by 1 plus G2 اللي 5%. هذا معروف عنه. نعرف الكي ولا نعرف الجي 2 ولا خلاص.
هذا نسوي له ديسكاونت.
يعني هذا شوف هذا كله ليه؟ راح الى الافينيتي. نقدر نعوضه بشيء واحد بس هو V2. هو بتساوي V2 هذا بتساوي free cash flow 6 divided by K minus G2.
وبعدين هذا كله نسوي له ديسكاونت. صح.
بعد طلعنا V2 هذا. نضيفها هنا. مثال 5 صح ولا؟ نضيفها every fish 1 plus K power 5. So for the last year we have two cash flows. Have the ordinary cash flow plus the value of the firm which corresponds to the second phase. وكيف Absolutely yes. The two-stage growth model. Sometimes we have three-stage growth model.
We use it now. The other course. Dr. Why we used the same power of 5 years?
Because this is the T0 for the second phase, right? The T5 for the first phase and T5 هذه المرحلة الأولى صح ولا؟ هي نفسها نهاية المرحلة الأولى هي بداية المرحلة الثانية. صح ولا؟ يعني المرحلة الثانية بدينا من هنا، شفت من هنا، بدينا من هنا. يعني تعوض هذا كله بالفاليو حق الفيرم صح مثل هنا في التي 5
عشان كذا مقسم عليه.
صح.
بس احنا استخدمنا الكاش فلو للسنه اللي بعدها المفروض انه يعني
لا هي كذا هو قرن شكله كذا الموديل حقه.
انا حتى بالتوستيت نسوي كذا بس مو قادر يعني استوعب السبب.
لانه شوف الفري كاش فلو هذا هو شو بالضبط؟ والفري كاش فلو حق السنه هذه زائد مو السنه الجايه، عشان كذا ناخذ ديما حق السنه الجايه بس. واضح بنات؟ طيب خلينا نجرب الحين. Let's try to practice on this example, right? So let's get back to Excel. So please open your Excel sheet.
Which file?
ABC, Chapter 2, ABC Corporation. So we create a new sheet. Sorry. Hey. So our first, I just put this one, ABC Corporation Valuation. ABC Corporation Valuation. We try by the free cash flow for year 2012. Free cash flow by the end of 2012. Second row is growth rate. I call it G1 for years 1 to 5. Year 1 to 5. Then the second growth rate, which is unlimited in time, it's called unlimited time. I have discount rate, or called weighted average cost of capital, same time, WACC, weighted average cost of capital. It's when we have financement for with both equity and debt. Now the free cash flow of 2012, we have found it last time, $593 to $76. Have an 8% first growth rate, 5% second growth rate, and a WACC of 10.7%.
I think there is problem with your point between 7 and 10.
ليش؟
You type comments.
ايه عاد عن 10.7. Then we have to put the year. We have the current year 2012. اعتبر الحاضر حقنا. Then we have the next 5 years for the first stage, 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 17. So these are our first stage. Have the free cash flow, as the terminal value, you have called here V2, second, which is the value for the second stage. And finally, we have the total. Once we have computed these three rows, we can easily find the enterprise value. And we learn later on how to find the fair price value, stock value using the enterprise value. So, but let's focus right now to the into enterprise value. So this is your free cash flow for the year 30, which is the one of 2012, and this is a constant one. We should fix it with $sign. Now for the year 23, the cash flow, which is cash flow one here, free cash flow one, should be equal to cash flow 0 times 1 plus the first growth rate, G1. So equal to cash flow 0 times, open the parentheses, 1 plus 8%. And since this is a constant growth rate, we should add the $sign and close the parentheses. So this is the expected cash flow for the next year, which is high by 8% compared to the present cash flow, or the current cash flow. Now 2014, same thing, is nothing but the cash flow for the year before. بس عمل السنة اللي قبلها وبس. اي بس عشان افسره معني شلون يتم الطريقة. كل سنة هي اللي قبلها زائد 1 زائد 8%. 1 plus once again 8%. Don't forget the $sign. And then we can just scroll to the right hand side. This is the formula text. Now terminal value V2 should be computed by the end of year 5 صح ولا؟ سألنا في البورد من شوي. يعني بيساوي كام؟ لا حاجة في 18. لسه يعني بيساوي
اخر سنه هو
صح؟
مضروب في 1 بلس
اوكي 1 plus the second growth rate اللي هو 5%. حلو divided by حلو minus 5. دايما انتبهوا. So it is equal to the final cash flow times 1 plus the growth rate. Now total cash flows is equal to the free cash flow plus the terminal value, which is 0 for the first year, second, and so on. And then scroll it down, scroll it to the right hand side, sorry. And finally, enterprise value, which is discounted value of all these cash flows. So we can use the NPV function. So we have the rate, which is discount rate, and we have the values of the different cash flows. And don't forget what we have seen last time during the last lecture, during the previous lecture, that when it comes to cash flows, discounted cash flows, so since there are continuous cash flow, not discrete cash flows, we use 0.5. ذكرتوها؟ صح، ناخذ المتوسط. مين المواد الثانية؟
لا لانها انتربرايز غير
ديفيدند غير ديفيدند ديسكريت، تاخد ديفيدند مرة واحدة أنت.
اوكي
هنا المشكلة وين؟ هذا كاش فلو، يعني أنت بتبيع وتجيب فلوس كل يوم في السنة، فأنا ناخذ الوسط أو بين أول سنة وآخر سنة هو الوسط، عشان كده نسوي 0.5 so times 1 plus B5 which is discount rate صح؟
1 plus
B5 which is the discount rate,
yes
then power 0.5. That's it. It's formula to X.
greater than the previous one because it's taking the cash flow in
صح.
middle year.
See, so this is the fair enterprise value, $30,063,060 using the fundamental analysis. Now, how to use this enterprise value to find the fair value of the
دكتور
stock?
دكتور
Yes, please.
بعد إذنك من وين جت ال 169,000 اللي ب 2017؟
هذه مجموع فري كاش فلو حق سنة 2017 زائد
أوكي
terminal value.
تمام ضحت شكرا.
عفوا. Yes, please. The total value. So this is the sum 8017. Now, how to find the equity value? خلصت ولا؟
إيه خلاص. Now we just need to know the common share.
Remember, for the ABC Corporation, we already know the number of shares, صح? We already know because we have transformed the balance sheet. We already know the cash and the total debt, financial debt. هذا كله سويناهم في المحاضرة اللي فاتت. And we know that just
دكتور
نعم.
ليش رفعناها to the power 0.5 عشان نبغاها نص السنة؟
صح، عشان أنا continuous الكاش فلو هذا ما يجيك مرة في السنة، هو يجيك كل يوم، فإحنا ما عارفين ناخذه أول السنة آخر السنة، اختار النقطة الوسط لنصف السنة وبس. Now, how to find the fair value of the stock, right? السهم الواحد. We know that after we transformed the balance sheet, we brought all the operational items from here to here, and then we brought all the financial items from here to here. by the end of the day, we have the following structure. We have net financial debt. We have the sum of net financial debt plus equity will give you the firm value. This is the firm value. The net financial debt is nothing but total financial debt minus cash flow and equivalent. ذكر جبناها من هنا لهنا كنت عن كاش فلو هنا صح ولا لا؟ حولناها هنا.
ليكويد ابسنت.
لانه هو الكاش فلو عندي كله هو ماركتبل السكيورتيز
والكاش.
كاش كله حولناه هنا. اعطينا النت فاينانشال ديت يعني في الاخر انا توتال فاينانشال ديت minus cash flow plus equity equal to the enterprise value. We have found enterprise value, صح? So we can easily find the equity value. So equity equal to enterprise value. So we move this cash flow to the other part, to the side, becomes plus cash flow. We move the financial debt to the other side, becomes minus total debt.
Total financial.
Total financial debt. Then we have, once we find the fair value of the equity, we divide by the number of shares outstanding, and then we have the fair price or the of stock. Yes. Then equity divided by number of outstanding shares equal to the fair value of the stock. Since see how we can move from the free cash flow statement to the fair value of a stock step by step. First, we transform the free cash flow statement into, the statement of cash flow to free cash flow statement. Then we use it to find the enterprise value. Then we use it to find the equity value. Then we use it to find the fair price of the stock. Once you have found this value, you can undertake your right financial investment. You can decide to buy the stock or sell it. It depends on the comparison between this fair price and the market price. So if you looked for long-term investment, use this technique. It is a reliable technique. It is based on business, on activities. So it will give you the future, prospectus of this stock for the long run. So let's practice. So see enterprise value. Now we have the initial cash flow and marketable securities. We add them back. See enterprise value plus cash flow. And then we subtract the financial liabilities or financial debt.
The screen is not clear.
Oh, sure. Here we go. See, so the enterprise value already found. We add back the cash. We subtract the financial liabilities or financial debt. Then we get the equity value. And then we divide by the number of shares and we get the fair price of the stock. So we go here. Enterprise value. We add back initial cash flow and marketable securities. Initial cash. We subtract financial debt. And then we get the value of the equity. And finally, we can find the per share. So the cash, sorry, is equal to 697. Then we subtract 1,379,106. So the equity is equal to enterprise value plus the cash minus the financial debt. And the per share is equal to the equity value divided by number of shares, which is 1 million shares. Well, that's it. Now, if the market price of this particular company is equal, for example, to 15 riyals, for example, 15 riyal, what would be your investment decision? Would you accept to invest or not? If the market price of this particular share was equal to 15 riyals, would you invest in this share or not, in this company or not? No, because this price is overpriced. When can we use this particular technique? So it's when we assume that the market is not highly efficient, which is the case of almost all markets in the world. That's why I highly recommend this technique, fundamental analysis, once you want to invest for the long horizon. Now we can make things more interesting because this whole thing is based on one scenario, صح? Which is 5% of perpetual growth rate with 10.7% as average cost of capital, right? صح ولا? So, but what if these scenarios wouldn't happen? لو ما صار وش نسوي? So we can be able to, to anticipate different scenarios. Of each one of these different scenarios, we should be able to compute the right or the fair value of the price. So we can use the data table. So I go here. So I create a row, new row for, let's say, for the growth rate. So I can start by 0% growth rate. 2% here. I select them and then I scroll to the right hand side. Sorry, 0%, 0.2%, and automatically Excel will, add 2% for each cell. Go until 12%, and then for the column, I will put the anticipated values of cost of capital. Let's start by 3%, for example. As cost of capital, I will add 2% each time. So we have different combinations here. We have like a matrix with different possible growth rates in the row and different possible cost of capital in the column. Now we go here and equal. So I'm looking after the per share price, صح? B16. Then I will select all the table. Go to data, what if analysis, data table. See, he's asking for two inputs, the row input and the column input. For the row input, it is the growth rate, صح? So I go to the G2 here, and the column is for the cost of capital. Then, okay, see what happens. For each combination, he will give you automatically the fair price of the company. Now, there is negative values here, صح? Which has no meaning economically. There is no negative price. Negative price means that you are, you are buying something and you are receiving money. Okay, so it has no sense economically, right? So why we have negative values here? Because we didn't respect one of the assumptions of Gordon-Shapiro model. Take this example. Minus 77, because we have growth rate 4% and cost of capital 3%. Remember, for the Gordon-Shapiro, this particular example, for Gordon-Shapiro, one of the basic conditions is that the growth rate must be less than the WACC. صح? So we go here, our main function where I put B16, and I will replace it by the if function, if. So the if is a logical function in Excel, which will give you certain values if you respect one condition, right? So if G2 less than, the WACC, semi-comma, then you display B16. And if not, display, for example, here, we'll open, the quotes because we'll put, a textual values and call it NA, for example, NA, which means not available, and close the quotes for the parentheses and see all the negative values have been replaced by not available, not available, not available, which means that we didn't respect the condition of Gordon-Shapiro. For all the rest, see, for every possible, combination, you get directly your fair price. For example, if the growth rate is 4% and the cost of capital is 21%, the price should be equal to 3.65 directly, right? And you can get this table bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, my son. So let's try it again. So I will erase all the table and start it from the scratch. ملوش الهدف احنا هدف الحين انه السيناريو هذا توقعناه 5% 10% هو سيناريو واحد بس. يكون عندك 50,000 سيناريو بعدين صح؟ لازم تجهز نفسك كل سيناريو متوقع. احنا ما راح نعيد الحركه هذه لكل سيناريو متوقع. بينا طول الوقت ما ننتهي منه هذا. فنسوي داتا تيبل هذا، شو نسوي؟ So first you consider the row. خذ الصف أول. For the row you will consider the growth rate. The perpetual growth rate to G2. 0%. Suppose that we are that we want to add by 2% for each step. Go to the next cell, 2%, for example. See, then select them both and drag it to the right-hand side. X will automatically add by 2%. We respect the incremental that you have used for the first two cells. Then for the column, consider the WACC, starting from 3%, for example. Sorry. Then 5% here, which means that I want Excel to add 2% each time. I select them both and I scroll it down. So we have a matrix. Each cell corresponds to a different combination. This one, for example, is when we have a growth rate of 4% and a WACC of 11%. What would be the fair price of the stock if these two conditions, were realized? So we go here. So don't forget, our goal is to find the per share price, which is this one, the B16, equal to B16. So as if we are asking Excel to find the per share price for every possible combination based on the same steps that we have used in B16. That's why we put equal to B16. Then you select all the table. You go to data. Then what if analysis, data table. And automatically Excel will ask you to determine what input used in row and what input to use in column. So for the row, we have used the G2, صح? So we select the G2 to the growth rate or the perpetual growth rate. While for the column, we have used the WACC. And then you type OK. And that's it. اوف عاد من كل شيء هذا. خلاص هذا سوينا الرو والكالن صح؟ طيب نحط احنا هدفنا نطلع البير شير برايس صح؟ واحنا البير شير برايس عندنا طلعناه في البي 16 هنا سو ايكوال بي 16. لما نسوي كده انه تعطي يعني انستراكشن الاكسل انا ترى ودنا نطلع البير شير برايس مثل ما سوينا في البي 16 نفس الخطوات بس كل مره يتغير يعني التوليفه بين الجي 2 وبين الواك. حلو، حط ايكوال وهنا يطلع لك كده. ما انت المفروض بعد نسوي كده، نسوي كده، ناخد سيلكت then go to data what if analysis then data table. So Excel will ask you what input to consider in row على مستوى بالداتا. روح على الداتا اي الداتا اللي فوق جنب فورمولاز.
بس بياخذ بالاعتبار انه على السعر اللي حددناه بناء على الترم الخمس سنوات بعدين
ايوه نفس يعني 5 سنوات ثابته ما يتغير. اللي بيتغير هو الافتراض هو الجي 2 والواك.
الجي 2 والواك
اي هذول يتغير. لقيتها ولا يا ياسر؟ هنستعمل الجي 2 تبع فوق Okay, so one last thing. As I told you, we have negative values, which has no sense economically. And it's because we have not respected the conditions put by Gordon-Shapiro model. So for these negative values, we have to eliminate them. So we go to the equal B16 cell and we replace it by the if function. So we'll tell Excel to keep the B16 if the growth rate is lower than the WACC. And if not, we display an error message. Don't display a negative value. So I will eliminate this one. So if function. Now the logical test, which is if the G2 is lower than the WACC, then display the per share price. And if not, can display error. الحين بالعكس مره مفيده مثلا نقول اذا اي صح بقول بعطيك فورمولا سيئه بس اعطيك ايكوال فورمولا تكست هذه الفورمولا ليش مفيده يا محمد؟ لانه انت 11.75 when we have find 11.75 it was because we have make two assumptions G2 5% معدل 5% WACC 10.7% صح؟ بس وش دراك راح تضبط معك الفرضيه هذه تجيك فرضيات ثانيه صح ولا؟ فمسوي التيبل هذا عندك كل فرضيه ممكنه تلاقي سعر صح؟ مثلا يقول هنا مثلا بعد سنه شفت انه والله لا لاحظت انه ممكن اقل من انت متوقع حيكون 2% مثلا بالسنه مو 5% تروح على 2% لما تروح على 7% الواقع طاير بعد هو ساعتك 11.03 هنا سوري 14.96 لا لا مثل ما تحب انت عشان سبيس وبس مثلا 0.5% تكون مره دقيق يعني مثل ما تحب انت.
دكتور كيف اسوي ده؟ معليش
هي مكتوبه هنا
كيف اطلع علامه تصغر منها؟
عندك في عندك انت والكيبورد حقك
نستخدم الاكويتي فاليو.
وشو؟
نستخدم الاكويتي فاليو ولا البرشير؟
البيرشير احنا همنا الايكويتي فاليو تاع مش جبنا البيرشير احنا الايكويتي فاليو ديفايد باي نمبر اوف شيرز.
شوف الفاصل
لا لانه انت اللي يهمك في الاخر مش اللي يهمك هو سعر السهم في البورصه. طيب let's take 10 minutes break and then we خلصنا كل شيء احنا في النظري then we try to practice for the second part of the include اي هذا معنا الحين مش عليه تمارين الحين.
في موجود بالكتاب
الاف موجود ده 10 دقائق طب بس 10 دقائق يعني عشان نخلص تمارين يعني